Ladies, gentlemen, friends, enemies, and those still under review, welcome to Monsterama 2025's Media Track. I am the erstwhile track director. My name is Andrew Jenner. Like all of you, I'm an independent filmmaker and podcaster. And I'll be kind of playing monitor for this, but I'd like to cede the floor to Richard Shellock and Rodney Barnett, our panelists for Werewolves of London and Elsewhere, the greatest werewolves movie ever. Audience participation is, of course, encouraged. Just, of course, obviously try not to talk over the panelists. I will try to do the same. And, of course, welcome. Thank you. Gentlemen.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Rod Barnett. I am, for my sins, a podcaster. And because of that, I have talked a whole lot about a certain range of werewolf films, which is why I'm here. Those werewolf films tend to have been made in Europe, although I've watched a lot of other werewolf films. I'm even hoping to eventually get around to this thing called American Werewolves. I've heard about this one now. So.
Yeah. Well, recently.
Hey.
80s-ish.
And you are?
My name is Richard J. Shellock. Please call me Rich. I was a television writer for way too long, and then graduated to print. So I've done columns in Famous Monsters of Filmland and Jesse Louie's Mondo magazines, and things like that. So I get around.
I guess we're going to talk about the best werewolf movies in the world. We should probably start with the worst. No, there are lots of werewolf movies out there. I mean, too many at times. When we have, at last count, I think 4 books that do nothing but list and talk about werewolf films that have been published in the past 20 years. Maybe it was a subject that when I was younger we thought might be smaller than the average bear. In other words, I was used to books about vampires, zombies, Frankenstein. But werewolves always seem to get the short end of the stick. Up until a kind of resurgence in the past 20 years or so, and not so much in more werewolf movies being made necessarily, more attention being paid to ones that have been made before. Some of them are wonderful, and I think they're fantastic, and I think they're incredible, and I have an idiosyncratic love for some of the odder ones. But if we're going to talk about the full range of them, it becomes a question of, remember everybody, just because you love a werewolf film doesn't mean everyone else does. And that's why I'm trying to make you kind toward me when I start talking about some of my favorites. Remember, it's just my opinion. As I stated before, I spent way too much time as a podcaster talking about a lot of Spanish werewolf films. You may know what I'm talking about. There's a Spanish filmmaker named Paul Nash, who's no longer with us. Lots of werewolf films, somewhere between 14 and 200. And of those, I love them all, but there are a couple that are not that great, I'm willing to admit. But since this was started with, the title is London, so I guess that's what they're thinking of as the jumping off point.
Yeah, I would say so. In all probability.
There's a wide range of how werewolves have been portrayed on screen. Werewolf of London, I think, looking back, is probably one of the odder ones. You turn into a werewolf and put on a hat.
Go out for a stroll.
Yeah, go out for a stroll, get a smoke. What are you looking for?
The projects were involved.
And it becomes a thing where, have you really turned into a werewolf, or did you just get the desire to be somewhere else with beer?
It was originally supposed to be a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde script. Just got
Yeah, and perhaps not tweaked enough. I think what most of us would identify as a werewolf is something that's a little kind of feral and out of control. And Werewolf of London, there's some ferocity that does creep into things eventually.
Yes. Standing behind a rock and snarling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's got its moments.
But I mean, if you were to define the werewolf as an on-screen, a screen monster, its defining characteristics would not be, you know, dapper.
Exactly.
So Werewolf of London really is an outlier.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that Universal kind of reinvented things in 41 with the ferocious, violent creature that, you know.
Thankfully.
Yes, that we then got the next 5 years, well, 4 years, 5 years? I guess we didn't even.
Abbott and Costello
Yeah, that's in 48, so.
was the last one.
Yeah, so, yeah. We get the ferocious beast, and that is, I think, what we associate with on-screen werewolves. And to be honest, that's really kind of how it should be. I like having a monster who is so out of control that when he reverts to human form, his base desire is to do away with himself so he can't harm anyone anymore. It becomes so horrible that it's worse than Jekyll and Hyde. He has no control over this. There is a point where in most Hyde tales, he's put the H into his veins far too many times and now he has no control over it. But at the same time, with a werewolf, there really is no control. And I mean, not all werewolf stories actually revolve around the linder cycle either. That's one of the things, if we're talking about werewolves on screen, not a lot of them past 41 are willing to stretch back to the kind of mythic ideas where the lycanthropy came from, that whole idea of it being something that, my favorite werewolf tales that rarely get told on screen is the idea that the person who transforms into a werewolf is someone who wants to do this,
yeah,
and goes about using some type of magic to create this effect on themselves to the point of actually having like a wolf skin that they draw around themselves, and this allows them to transform. I would love to see that be played up more in different on-screen werewolf tales, but it's generally not.
right.
So the outlier ones are the ones that I think are more interesting because we're so used to the other type.
And for the longest time, Universal was the only maker the real maker of these things. And they still paid it so little attention that it took Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman to give the Wolfman a serious sequel.
Yeah.
And then House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, in which Larry Talbot was in essence cured. And
Didn't matter.
Then in Abbott and Costello, he's back again. So you know.
I like to take the view that surely this just happens earlier in the timeline, right?
Yeah. Don't call me Shirley.
But the desire to line those films up into some kind of logical, chronological tale of Larry Talbot, always kind of doomed to failure. We aren't even sure exactly how much time passes. I mean, it's not as bad as the Mummy films, don't get me wrong,
Right,
where quicksand has magical teleportation capabilities. That's another thing entirely.
Yeah.
And don't get me started, I'll argue about those movies, I love them. I love them way too much. But as far as werewolf films, I mean, do you remember, and I do not, do you remember the first werewolf film you saw?
Yes.
Which one?
It was Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, the first story.
Okay.
I saw it at the Strand Theater in Hamden, Connecticut. And it was a lot of fun until the end when I realized, spoiler alert, there's no werewolf.
So, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't refer to that as like the standout story of that particular.
It certainly is not, but that's the first time I dealt with any kind of werewolf in the theater.
So, did it make you yearn for more werewolf tales?
It made me yearn for Curse of the Werewolf when Hammer did it, so, yeah.
Well, there's a good one. There's one that I think actually, if I were to assemble a top 5 werewolf films, that would be there easily.
Yes.
And that's with my predilection for the weirder end of the werewolf spectrum. That still is just such a great film.
Yeah.
But I can't remember which was the first werewolf film that I saw. I know the first one I saw and realized I was sitting down to watch a werewolf film was definitely The Howling. Because it was on cable when I was a kid. It was on HBO. And it had
When
Matt.
he was a kid.
Yeah.
Same here.
I'm trying to think of what age, and I was at that time, it's probably 30s or something like that.
This would have been, yeah, well, this would have been the early 80s, about like 81, 82, whenever it came to HBO. Because I was woefully neglected as a child as far as the television was concerned. Believe me, if I'm allowed to stay over at my grandmother's, set an alarm clock and get up in the middle of the night to watch The Shining, they don't give a damn what I'm watching. So I remember watching The Howling and thinking, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. But of course, why did I want to watch The Howling in the first place? It had nothing to do with the werewolf. It had to do with, it was this special letter, R, which promised things I wasn't going to see in other movies.
Oh, yeah.
But I loved it. And I didn't realize that all werewolf movies weren't like that. And so it was a real weird thing to back up and then see. There was no real differentiation for me when I was a kid between black and white and color films. They were just movies, I didn't care. And so when I finally saw The Wolfman, and there was no like ballooning flesh, and it was all lap dissolves to show us the transformation, I was like, well, where's the rest of the movie? Not that I didn't love the movie, but it's one of those first instances in a monster film where you realize expectations versus realization might need to be gauged in a different manner.
Now, wait a minute. Howling was your first?
That's the first one I remember on cable.
So you thought it was normal for Dee Wallace to turn into a poodle?
Well, let's just say that I was disappointed in many films.
No.
Yeah.
We thought it was normal for the foxy werewolf to have like the leather, halter top.
Well, sure, I mean.
Well, if not normal, it was something we hoped for at all.
Yeah.
When you were younger, what was the werewolf movie that really kind of lit you up?
It was all of the Universal Classics, because what we had a PBS out of New York that would run them on a regular basis, especially around Halloween. And so no commercials, no interruptions, and it was fantastic. So I got to start on pretty much all of the originals and had a ball with them. And as the technology got, let's say, better for makeup, I was pretty excited. I mean, I figured I'm going to get a chance to see some stuff that I wouldn't have seen as transformation, and I found out really at the end that I kind of have that romantic aspect for the nostalgia of the original transformations. And I think the Howling thing, when like you said, when they get balloony and everything, seriously? I don't see that being the direction we're going here.
But I would say that when after I saw The Howling, seeing its released the same year, when I saw American Werewolf in London, I thought, my God, what can they not do with practical special effects? Of course, at the time, I wasn't thinking practical. I was just thinking, my God, special effects. Because the transformation in that is something that always seems to be trying to be gotten across by actors. But in that film, it demonstrated it extremely clearly, which is this is a hideously painful thing.
Right, which is great.
Yeah.
And
as it would have to be. I mean, you're elongating bones and you're stretching flesh and all of these things that would have to happen for this physical transformation to take place. It becomes a question of, is it the pain that makes them lash out, or is there something inborn, some feral thing that's inborn in the creature itself? But you were talking about how for a long time it was really only Universal that did the werewolf things. Until you get to the late 50s and you get a couple of independent productions. You get, was it Markoff production, The Werewolf?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, The Werewolf, which is weird, because when I think of werewolves, I think black magic, I think supernatural, I think curse. Whereas in that film, though, it's a scientific
Yeah.
werewolf. It's someone who's transformed into what appears to be a werewolf via some hideous science experiment. Pretty good little movie, very different take.
Yeah, and because the title was so short, The Werewolf,
The Werewolf.
I figured, well, this has got to be something big, because, look, they got the early title, the early call on that title. So, it wasn't quite the movie I was expecting.
No,
but
it's not a bad film.
No, I enjoy it.
It's not great. Don't sit down to watch it for the first time thinking you're about to find an unpolished gem. It's not. It's worth your time. But then we got
I was a teenager.
I Was a Teenage Werewolf, which for reasons that involve strange family relations we may never see a Blu-ray of, much less a DVD of. If you see that film these days, what you're watching is a bootleg of the VHS release that was put out back in the 80s, which is a real shame because it's actually a very good film. I think I Was a Teenage Werewolf is exceptional, and it finally addressed one of the things that the whole werewolf as a monster is really kind of all about, which is that horrible, not just male, but specifically with werewolves, it almost always tends to be a male consideration of the approaching of manhood, puberty, the changes, all the bodily changes that come about when suddenly you realize that little girl over there isn't just an irritating thing, but something that is irritating in a completely different way. And so the whole concept of the werewolf being, showing not just, good versus bad, but a change that is natural, something that unfortunately comes about because you are turning into something else. You're turning into an adult version of a human being. And the things coursing through your veins aren't exactly something that you can necessarily control. There are all these spasms of things that you might want to say or do that you probably shouldn't say or do, not necessarily governed by the brain, but really the body. And so, I Was a Teenage Werewolf kind of puts that front and center, that whole idea of it just being I almost want to steal that much revealed final chapter of Clockwork Orange when you discover, when you realize that these horrible teenage criminals were just going through the horrible teenage phase that horrible teenagers go through. But I Was a Teenage Werewolf puts that front and center, and it's not played with a lot in subsequent films,
Right.
but it does it very well because you can read that whole movie as just, the character Michael Landon's playing is kind of growing up and dealing with the hideousness of what his body's doing to it. Or you can watch it, it's a pretty damn good movie. It's just a good werewolf film. It's pretty fun.
And for years, they speculated that he couldn't stand the movie. And he said, the truth of the matter is, anything that puts you on the map, puts you on the map. And later, when he did Highway to Heaven, he did an episode called I Was a Middle-Aged Werewolf, where he does the makeup again and the whole thing. And it was interesting. I mean, I'm glad he revisited it. And it's a fun episode. I won't say that it deep in plot, but I would say that it's a fun episode. It's fun to see him look at.
So when we get past I Was a Teenage Werewolf, which is late 58?
Yeah.
58.
57 or 58, yeah.
Once we get past that, the next real landmark film would have to be Hammer's Curse of the Werewolf. Phenomenal film, beautiful. It was a shock after having loved the film for years to find out that the only reason it got made was they were repurposing sets for a completely different film that they then couldn't get the rights to make. It doesn't matter. The film is fantastic.
Stunning makeup.
Yes.
I mean, just
yes.
coolest.
And
Oliver Reed was basically a werewolf anyway.
there was an actor who understood the assignment.
Yes, he did.
So the Curse of the Werewolf is, I think, it's another along that, that list of, in my opinion, great werewolf films. It is fantastic from beginning to end. You can be a Hammer film fan and you can see how it carefully, stylistically, in every way it fits all of the other films they were making from the late 50s to the late 60s. It really looks and feels like one of those movies. And the fact that they made one, only that one, is a sign that I had not been born yet to screen it. Because that movie is, of all of the Dracula sequels and Frankenstein sequels, Mummy sequels, out of all those movies, if we could have just gotten one more stinking werewolf movie, if they could just have held a liquor bottle in front of Reed and gotten it from the
Well, if you paid attention to the artwork in the Legend of the Werewolf, you would have thought, oh, gee, this is great, it's a sequel. It's not. I believe Tyburn?
Yeah, 1975.
Tyburn.
Is it Tyburn?
Tyburn. Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Stand
For
corrected.
those who are curious, imagine my hand is film budget. There's Hammer, there's Amicus, there's Tigan, and there's Tyburn. So when you hear that there's a werewolf film from Tyburn, don't hold out much hope.
But when you see the picture of it, it's a familiar kind of look. It looks a little bit like Curse of the Werewolf.
Mm-hmm. It does.
But most of the budget went for Peter Cushing.
Yes.
Because they knew that at least that would get some butts and seats.
It's not a bad movie. It's nicely written. It's just, it has no money.
Yeah.
And there was that, and there
sadly
was
shows fairly
and there was that, there was the Ghoul, and that was about it for Tyburn.
I've forgotten that. Somehow I thought they produced like a dozen films, but that's just terrifying to think that they could only squeeze that many out.
I
Anyway.
think there might have been one or two others, but.
Anyway, so the two biggies that kind of reignited everything were the same year, American Werewolf and The Howling. Scattered amongst there were other films. I'll mention the films made in from the late 60s up to 1996, which is a long series of werewolf films made by Paul Naschy. It started in 68, and the last one he made was in 96. Do not talk to me about that thing made in the United States that's basically a softcore porn film. That's not a werewolf film. That is something different. And yes, Paul Naschy is in it, and yes, he's occasionally a werewolf. Make about it, don't think about it. What do you think? But that series of films is very much a throwback. Paul Naschy's films are very much a throwback to both the Hammer films and the Universal films. Only it's the 70s, so a lot more blood. It's very clear that in the Paul Naschy werewolf films, the sweetest meat on the human body is in the neck. And you gotta go for it every time. But those films, very different. And because of that long series of films where he's essentially playing the same character, although not really the same character, they just have the same name, we get to one of my favorite aspects of the werewolf, which is the possibility of immortality.
Right.
Lawrence Talbot set this all in place as they went through those Universal films in the 40s, whining constantly about just wanting to die, to the point where there have been moments when I have really, really, really wanted to strangle the script writers. Because you don't understand. Yes, but we do, so stop repeating it again and again. But the fact that nothing seems to be able to kill him, which is one of the reasons why I don't mind him being cured and then showing up as a werewolf again later on. It's like,
But it was just sad.
it didn't take,
I know.
But the idea of a monster, and they do that with the Frankenstein monster in the Universal films as well, the idea that this undying monster. But with the werewolf, it's not just this creature that was created and therefore can't really be destroyed by conventional means. It's that this curse, this supernatural curse, dooms him to, that's the real curse, is this immortality. He can't end, and he knows that every chance he gets, if he's not restrained, he will murder people. Which it's not brought out consistently throughout the films, but it seems to weigh on him as someone who is both moral and perhaps religious and not wanting to be someone who takes others' lives. And so this becomes a horrible thing. Is like, how do you kill a werewolf? Well, I guess we could, I don't know, chop them up. We can come up with a lot of different ways. But I love the idea of this, the immortality being the curse, and all these deaths just being what comes from the fact that he's immortal, something that he can't control. Yeah. It's collateral. It's collateral damage until you're, having your throat ripped out, I guess. Then it seems pretty primary. But immortal monsters are kind of hideous thing. We're not talking the Blob here. This thing can think to a degree. There's a certain amount of cunning. There's a stalking aspect. There's sometimes a guided desire in particular werewolf stories. A desire to eliminate something, not just because it's in front of them, because there's a specific reason to eliminate that particular person. In the great hierarchy of movie monsters, I guess the werewolf falls in the top three. I mean, vampires, Frankenstein monster. I mean, but as far as cinema werewolves, I think that there's enough of them and there's been enough high quality. The monster itself rates pretty highly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you start talking about if somebody is going to name a monster, that they might name a werewolf off the top of their head, but not necessarily. They're going to go Dracula.
Yeah.
Or Dracula.
Dracula's and Wolfman.
Yeah. Also, besides the two biggies in '81, there was also Wolfen.
Yes.
Not technically a werewolf.
Not technically, but
True.
still plays with some of the same ideas.
Yes, absolutely.
And a pretty darn good film.
Okay.
And Cohen did one too.
Which
Full Moon High, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And which was, look, anything Larry did was interesting. So
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun to watch. He
Larry-
was notorious for never getting permits for anything.
Yeah, he
And
never
he
mind.
did great stuff in New York. I mean, really great stuff, but illegally all.
But some good films, regardless. I mean, good Lord, It's Alive, Q, The Winged Monster, God Told Me So.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting the biggies. Oh my Lord.
Well,
The
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, the stuff was great. But there was also a time in 1975 where they were spitting out the worst werewolf movies, that some of which I've never heard of. Now, I'm 69 years old. I've at least heard of quite a few horror movies. I had never heard of The Werewolf of Woodstock.
Oh, no, I've heard it.
Okay. I had heard of The Werewolf of Washington. I had not heard of The Werewolf and the Yeti.
Oh, no, that's a Paul Nash. That's a retitling of a Paul Nash film.
And I had never heard of the retitling.
The
That's why.
the title I prefer to call it is Night of the Howling Beast, which is how I
that
first.
works.
Yeah, that's the title I saw it under on VHS back in the late '80s, early '90s.
Okay.
At a mom and pop video shop. Night of the Howling Beast is a better title. Werewolf and the Yeti is the one that got more dollars in the coffer to be won.
Amazing.
And you know what? The Werewolf and the Yeti do fight in the last minute of the film.
Okay, so it wasn't a lie.
No. But it's, to be honest, it's a pretty great little film. It's one of the failures of my podcast partner and I. I have a buddy. We've done a podcast about Paul Nash's films, not just the werewolf ones, all of his movies, for about the past 15 years. And when we started being offered commentary track jobs, when they started putting his stuff out on Blu-ray here in the States, we had every plan in the world to do a commentary track for that particular film when they released it on Blu. And then they contacted us and said, "Hey, where are those commentary tracks? We need them next week." And we went, we told you a month and a half ago that we need to know which version of the film you're providing here, because otherwise there are things missing. And we need to know the length of the film, what it contains and what it doesn't, so you're not getting it. So if you ever wonder why we didn't talk about that particular film on Blu-ray, that's the reason.
All right, so I have a burning question.
Sure.
It's from 1985. Is Teen Wolf a werewolf movie?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
I mean, it's a, once again, like I Was a Teenage Werewolf, it emphasizes the thing that is kind of one of the subtexts about the werewolf idea. But yeah, it's a werewolf film. I mean, just because it's a comedy doesn't make it, just because it's the weakest Michael J. Fox film that came out of the mid-'80s. I mean, it's not.
Doc Hollywood fan,
Huh?
a Doc Hollywood fan?
It might as well be. Yeah. It was the 90s. It was a lot of fantasy pretending to be.
So are there werewolf movies that you would say, this is not a werewolf movie?
Ooh, I've got one. If you get a chance, go over to the Severin table in the dealer's room. They are hosting a gentleman named Carter Lord, who in 1982 released very, very narrowly in 1984, made a movie called The Enchanted, which is a shapeshifter movie, does feature 2 werewolves, and is not a werewolf movie.
Okay.
It is, I'll probably be going on about this on the Luton panel later this evening, because it shows a lot of that sort of atmospheric influence. But it is an utterly beautiful film, and it's, basically, the person I am most likely to fanboy over in the world who is alive is actually sitting in the other room over there.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking of a movie that tries to claim that it's a werewolf movie, but is not. She-Wolf of London, 1945.
Yes. Oh, yes.
That movie pissed me off. Now, I don't suppose I should share why, because it would be a spoiler, but then, on the other hand,
You're not
it was-
spoiling anything.
Most of us,
it would
I'm
keep
sure.
The film is the
voicing that there's no werewolf in it at all.
No, just kidding.
Yeah.
No. I had never seen that film until it came out on the DVD set along with all the other werewolf films.
Well, that must have been a tough day for you.
Well, because at that time, I had started to think seriously about this kind of thing, and I was like, all right, a female werewolf. Because we get the occasional female werewolf pop up for just long enough to be slaughtered in a
Right.
Paul Naschy film. And it's always an accident. It's always something that's not supposed to happen. And I thought, She-Wolf of London, holy hell, how did I miss this? And then you watch it and you understand how you missed it. Yeah, I understand being pissed. But if you talk about a werewolf film that isn't a werewolf film, I would go Werewolf in Washington, to be blunt.
No, no.
I mean, that's just, it's a
Werewolves on
satire.
wheels to some extent.
Yeah.
Not that that was any good to anybody, anyway.
I do want to point out one movie that does give girls a piece about werewolf action.
Ginger Snaps.
Spoiler.
Oh,
I was actually going to say Wolf Walkers. If anybody has seen the 2020 animated film by Cartoon Saloon. Unfortunately, they released it to Apple TV, which is
why I'm not
made it
seeing it.
very difficult for
It's
people
in the
to see
Criterion
it.
box set.
But it is an animated film, and see, she knows what I'm talking about.
I've seen all the Cartoon Saloon stuff.
Yeah, it is, but it is a gorgeous film, first of all. And it does have a kind of, the wolf walker transforms into a wolf while she sleeps. And so, in your waking life, you're human, but when you sleep, you're a wolf, but part of you is conscious. There's this wonderful sequence.
When do they
where-
rest? Holy crap.
Well, I guess that don't matter to you.
No rest for the wolf then.
Yes, yeah, I guess it'll sleep when, yeah, they're.
They'll sleep when they're dead.
When they're dead. Because, yes, they can die. But,
It also does use the pelt as sort of the signifier.
Okay,
yeah, but just wanted to point that out because it does disappoint me that there are not more really good movies about female shapeshifters.
Nah.
Especially, unless a female shapeshifter, if she does show up, is not like Larry Talbot, anti-hero, conflicted, tormented. She's usually portrayed as 100% pure evil because girls don't get to be misunderstood monsters. They don't.
Well,
I think Ginger Snaps probably put that.
you put your finger on a particular problem with most werewolf movies is that they're written by men. And therefore,
Well, it's a werewolf film that isn't a werewolf film. Are you familiar with the Paul Dupree trilogy?
yes, the Ape Woman films, the
Yes.
Universal Ape Woman films.
Yeah.
Available on Blu-ray whether you like it or not.
I wonder about Catman of Paris, which, you know, it's on the border.
Yeah, and it's worth seeing, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, you're right, it's on the border, that's a good
Or,
question.
speaking of, titles handed down by the studio, of course, the Cat People.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, yes.
Shapeshifter adjacent.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And you could do, what are werewolf films that aren't werewolf films? Like Hideous Sun Demon. Which is like, it's an inversion, but it's
Yeah,
not by
that's
all,
true.
by all the standards.
Well, in the same light as Bullwalkers, there's always Pixar's Turning Red.
Which is true, which is a variation. Well, I've seen people try to put it in the Jekyll and Hyde category too.
Well, it does that puberty, it does what you're talking about with Teenage Werewolf and
Teen Wolf.
Teen Wolf. It does the puberty, shape-shifting as a metaphor for puberty, but unfortunately, some grifters got a hold of the idea that it was just supposed to represent menstruation, which is, that kind of poisoned the well of the conversation around
I
that.
think
Once
Ginger
again-
Snaps nailed female adolescence as a werewolf, or werewolfism as a metaphor for female adolescence.
Yeah.
A lot more acute. Certainly the first one. The two other Ginger Snaps movies are both terrific. They're very different tonally.
Yeah.
Ah,
But they are
Have
an
to
incredibly
look
rare beast where the werewolf, where the transformation, the lycanthrope
There's an old
is a
movie,
woman.
a cat people. What is it, something?
Val-
Yeah, it's about,
I'm sorry, go keep going.
no, it's, I mean, it is the whole film plays with whether or not the transformation is happening or not, which is part of the draw. I mean, that's what makes those Val films a joy, even the ones that aren't, all that supernatural in tone. There's something questionable about
We'll
what's
be
going
going
on.
on about this at great length later this evening.
I think to a point with the
In
first
exhaustive
cat
detail.
people. I think to a point with the first cat people, one thing that's interesting though for that era then, is you also do have the thing that, where it touches, I think, more so than the later one does. On
The
the
second one's a
things,
very- the second
on
one's a
the
very
things,
different
on
beast.
the things of repression.
Yeah. Oh,
For the
definitely.
character, so even though, yes, she's a little, she's young adult, young woman, but that for that era, it deals with that thing where she, on one hand, she's horrified that this might be a thing, it also might not be. It also is a thing where, though, she questions, she doesn't want this, but also, it brings in that moral grayness for the person that may or may not be dealing with having this transformation thing. And I don't think you had that so much with the later one, quite in the same way.
I like the sequel.
oh, Curse of the Cat.
So different, but it
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
But definitely not a werewolf movie.
No, not a werewolf.
Transformation. But hope we get to talk about that at 8.
Yes.
I did want to mention that American Werewolf in Paris has female werewolves.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, I did see that movie once. I have.
I don't remember it either.
The panel is called Greatest Werewolf.
But I do also want to ask what your guys' opinion are in that in this age now, where we have CGI morphing technology, why don't we have a renaissance of werewolf films?
Oh, because,
We don't write anymore.
because CGI hair is hell.
Yes.
Extraordinarily expensive to render. And, even when
They
it looks.
do it anyway. I mean,
Yeah, believe me, I'm.
Wasn't there just a Wolfman movie like last year where they're out in
Yeah.
the woods? And
Yeah, it got,
I didn't see it.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah,
that's a lot of
And see, that's the thing, I always go back to the way Guillermo del Toro approaches this, which is CGI is a tool. But he always wants to default to a practical, because he wants his actors to be able to touch it, because nothing else looks right. If the actors around it can't touch it, then it doesn't look right. So you can get those, the CGI where the hair is popping out of the flesh can look great, because it's in motion, and it doesn't matter if the arm is moving or not. But the moment that all of those things combine, if you're not spending an extraordinary amount of money, it looks like crap almost instantaneously. So a combination of the two, there was when Del Toro did Blade 2, it was an astonishing thing to watch him go through and explain to you and show you specifically where on these vampire creatures, where he would use CGI to get from one practical element to another on screen, and you could never tell.
Yeah.
Because he spent his money to get these little bits done to bridge between the practicals. And so it all looked right because someone was always touching it. There was something there. And so it can be done, it just costs so stinking much money.
Can I do a public service announcement? Do you people, you're aware of the Dollar Tree?
yeah.
Okay. And I'm sure you've been there and you've seen movies there and you picked them up and you said, how wrong can I go for $1?
As it turns out.
Wolf Cop and Wolf Cop 2. If you pick those up, you are in for a ride.
Those are, okay, first of all, remember what I talked about earlier about the whole R rating thing? Keep that shit in mind.
Oh, yeah.
Because one of those things that, as a young man, you might have thought about a werewolf transformation, but of course you knew it was never going to be on screen. Well, this one wasn't on screen.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah.
In fact.
Yeah.
Little too much for my taste, so.
Yes, but those are actually fun movies, and you can take them, I mean, they play things straight, but there's still a lot of humor in those films, and it's kind of a surprise. And once again, it's practical. I mean, they use some CGI to bridge some things, but it's practical. It's a man in a suit.
Yeah, I'll give him that, it is, but I mean, he, looks kind of chunky.
Oh, yeah, well,
So
when you're transforming into a werewolf, you gotta work with what you got.
So it's the Wolfman dad bod.
To a degree. Now, here's something, I don't know how much time we got. Oh, good, we've got time, okay, good. There is a whole subset of people who are willing to look at werewolf films from the position of trying to discern if it's possible that these lycanthropes are just suffering from a mental illness. In other words, are what we see real, or is it something that is just in their heads? And if we were to see reality, would it just be a normal-looking guy looking like a maniac and drooling and snarling, acting out his real hidden desires to do this violent action?
Well, that was original Talbot, they touched on that with him.
Yeah,
Correct.
well, it rains.
Yeah.
I think almost anything can happen to a man in his own mind.
Would that make American Psycho a werewolf movie?
Oh, yes, I'm here for this.
Patrick Bateman.
There is a relatively recent movie that was sold as though it were a werewolf movie. I almost don't want to tell you which movie it was because that would constitute a spoiler for the film itself. But it struck me as I was watching, it's relatively recent, you'll probably stumble across it accidentally. But it struck me as kind of a backdoor adaptation of a, as you said, psychological werewolf story that I first ran across in Weird Tales in one of the anthologies that they did of those back in the 80s called Taboo. I unfortunately do not remember who wrote it, and of course the Google search there would be interesting. But essentially approaching lycanthropy as a psychological illness.
I think I know how to do this movie.
That is that movie, yes. Okay, it's The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
Okay, I've heard of it, but not seen it.
And I actually like the claim, Robert Forrester.
Yes,
was the
it
sheriff
was
in it.
Forster's last movie.
I believe it was his last movie or his second to last movie.
And starred Jim Cummings, who has the most fascinating delivery of any character actor I've run across in a while. This is somebody whose shtick is being unbelievably tightly wound all the time. He's an interesting filmmaker and actor.
Is that the same, that's not the same Jim Cummings who's the voice actor?
No, it is not.
Okay, all
I
right.
have the same question.
So, just want to make sure if I check this out, I wouldn't be hearing Darkwing Duck in my head.
Yes.
Couple things. First of all, there is room for a dapper werewolf. Otherwise, who's going to inspire Warren Zevon?
Well, I mean, I'm to this day fairly sure that the reason many hair care products exist.
That's true. But the second one is, one of the things that fascinates me most in werewolf movies is the method of transformation. And one of my favorites is stripping off the human skin.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Not that common, but yeah.
no, as a matter of fact, I know of 2 films. Just 2. And you may know more than I do.
I don't know.
Probably.
One of the 2 you're thinking.
The first one, of course, is, the first one.
Van Helsing.
Company of Wolves.
Oh.
Company of Wolves.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, yes.
And then the second one isn't per se a werewolf film, it's an anthology film, Trick or Treat.
Van Helsing has it, the TV series Hemlock Grove.
I've managed to block out.
I've managed to block out Von Helsing as much as possible. Vampire Baby Water Balloons was a
Yes,
thing.
yeah. That was my phrase from that film.
Yes. If we're going to establish that all that needs to happen for a werewolf to not be a damn werewolf is for a cloud to be over the moon, we have opened up a whole can of worms. I guess the clouds can stop the tides too.
Are there other films that feature the stripping off the human skin, though?
Cat Vegetable, the 80s movie.
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah.
Exactly.
The werewolf.
Oh, well, no, that's
Not
true.
Luke.
I remember it in the TV show Werewolf.
Yes.
See, I never saw.
I didn't either, I couldn't.
For all my love of things werewolf, I've still never seen that show.
Search for that.
It's pretty good.
It's
hard. I remember it as being hard.
Chuck Connor plays a werewolf and when he transfers, and this was pretty heavy stuff for 1980s. I'm telling you.
Which I find is right.
I don't think it's that difficult to find. I think they issued some Blu-ray DVDs. It's a bit nice for a long time. Yes, Mr.
Here's our, I mentioned the Vincent Price werewolf connection, because he didn't make a werewolf movie, but he made a werewolf radio play, BBC radio play called Night of the Wolf. You can listen to it on YouTube. He plays a Pennsylvania judge who travels to England because his son is studying at Cambridge, but his son has disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and he's come under the influence of this very strange family that lives out in the swamps somewhere. So he goes tracking down his son because he's heard that he might have become a werewolf. So,
I don't know that I've ever, okay, I'm a huge old-time radio
yeah,
fanatic.
Night of the Wolf,
Night of the Wolf.
1975, his wife Coral Brown is also.
Ah, so late, okay, very much.
Technically, there were werewolves in the Monster Club, but Vincent Price was not one of them.
No, he played a vampire.
Yes.
He very rarely did.
All right, speaking of weird backwards werewolves, I mean, I think Dog Soldiers probably merits a
Yeah.
in this kind of as well.
Very well realized werewolves in that. I've never warmed to the film myself. But obviously people love it.
I mean, Spoonie is one of the great supporting characters in any sort of military set. I hope they give you indigestion.
And I think that they took their design from The Howling, and did a fine job with it. I mean, you know, I like the look of Dog Soldiers, but like you, there was just some disconnect there.
Well, that was more
The film
of
didn't
a,
work for me.
that was more of a soldier story with werewolves than it was a werewolf story with soldiers.
It's an apt way of putting it.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, about 2 years ago, I learned why there's never been a sequel to it. Because there was some big dispute about, between the producers, and they wanted it, because it was successful financially, so they had an idea. And the idea that I heard from Neil Marshall about what they planned to do in a sequel, I was like, well, that's the freaking werewolf movie I want to see. And they've never been able to make it, because nobody could stop themselves from being so greedy that they stopped the film from getting made, because they all wanted a larger and larger piece of whatever got, whatever money the thing made. And, which was kind of a shock, because, financially successful werewolf film in the day and age past direct-to-video, you'd think it would be a no-brainer, but greed, by the way, greed will destroy a film faster than anything else.
Supposedly Marshall is working on a new werewolf movie. He's describing it as that sort of spiritual successor.
Well, I wonder if they're going to play with the same idea that he was talking about, which sounded like I said, the kind of werewolf film that I would love to see. But then again, oftentimes we walk into a werewolf film and we get She-Wolf of London. So.
Well, the She-Wolf of London TV series was actually pretty good.
A few episodes of that.
I've never seen that either. There was a long stretch there where there were all those syndicated television series. Werewolf was one of them. They were produced by these independent companies, and they all just seemed like this big slurry of stuff, and you could never find it. Depending on where you lived, whatever you're telling it could air at 2 in the morning.
You can get the DVD box set for like $12 at this point. That's how I finally ended up getting out of it. Wait a second, this existed? This existed.
Is it any good? I mean, that's the real
It's actually a pretty good series. I mean, it's sort of a mix of Monster of the Week and trying to cure this werewolf curse. But there's great romantic chemistry between the two leads. The doctor who's trying to cure the lady's werewolf curse and the lady who is werewolf cursed.
How long did it last? How many episodes?
Basically, one season, and they kind of retooled halfway through the season. So the second season was called Love and Monsters, I believe.
Love and Curses.
Love and Curses. Thank you.
Ah.
So the weird course of syndicated television, as you suggested.
Yeah.
There was a series in the 70s, it was not a werewolf series, but it was werewolf adjacent, called Lucan, about a guy who'd been raised by wolves. And so for some strange reason, he would have these wolfish powers. He could like leap, his eyes would glow red, and he was kind of wolfing out.
You're not thinking of Bigfoot at all.
That's the Incredible Arguably a werewolf story.
I have faint memories of this.
It had the same thing as like the Hulk and the Fugitive, where he was kind of on the lam, there was somebody hunting him. So each week he would have some new odd job, and then the guy would kind of get close and have to move on.
I finally reached the age where I had to explain to someone what I meant when I said, oh, so you're describing essentially a fugitive, to someone 30 years younger than me, and they're like, what the hell are you talking about? For them, the fugitive is a Harrison Ford film. I was going, loner, being forced to travel from town to town, do an adventure in each town, move on at the end of the episode. Oh, God.
You gotta tell them poker face now, they'll get that.
Maybe so, yeah.
I have a rookie question, because I'm like newbie all the way on this. Is there any part in the movie anywhere where the werewolf has started his transformation, there's an eclipse, and he gets stuck at a certain stage?
That's really I feel like I've seen that, but I don't know where.
Robot Chicken is where you've seen it.
I think you are describing something that was in an EC Comics.
And if I remember correctly, the werewolf gets shot at the end, and in the background, you hear someone yelling, "I was silly." And you find out that the Lone Ranger took him out.
Okay, now, as someone who has not been overly impressed with recent werewolf offerings, aside from Wolf Cop, which was hilarious, the idea of someone eventually thinking, you know, if we can get the rights to the Lone Ranger, we don't have to pay anybody for a werewolf story. It seems like an Old West werewolf story. It's perfect. And of course, you know, there have been some in comic book form. You can go pick up one.
There have been a couple in the Dollar Tree specials, but most of them were not terribly good.
No, I'm talking about an actual film. There have been comic book versions of those kind of stories. I'm sorry, sir, what were you saying?
Well, like a werewolf film that isn't a werewolf film, I think it's called, well, it's got Sonny Chiba. It's a Japanese
Oh,
film.
the Wolf Guy.
Wolf Guy, yes.
Which I mean, this may sound weird.
US title.
I own that Blu-ray and haven't watched it yet.
Well, you should.
It's in the giant room of such items that I own. Yeah.
I know,
I would also recommend, for those of you who want something with a little bit more of a romantic aura, it's an anime film called Wolf Children. I think it was made by the same person who did Belle.
Yes.
What was that? Yes.
What vintage? What vintage? What was it?
Wolf Children, I think it was early 2010s.
Okay, so, okay,
Because
recent. I didn't-
the wolf children of the title are the children of a woman who fell in love with a werewolf. And so both children are werewolves. And there's a question of which side of themselves are they going to embrace? Are they going to find a way to become human, or are they going to just embrace the wolf and stay woven? And so the two siblings go on opposite journeys in this way. I thought it was very well done.
The growing a definite call following as far as
Are there any other werewolf films that we have talked about that are worth, I mean, that people think we kind of skimmed?
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about it.
At the risk of gnawing on a point of order, you
Oh,
mentioned
no, we
that
haven't.
werewolf movies were mostly the purview of Universal in the 40s and thereabouts, and you're correct, but Columbia did one called Cry of the Werewolf, which was not great, but it's watchable. And Fox
Pretty good movie.
did a really good one called, you actually accidentally hit upon the title earlier, The Undying Monster,
Yeah.
which was, of course, directed by John Bram, who later, shortly after followed that with The Lodger and Hangover Square, and of course is most famous for a lot of Twilight Zone episodes.
That monster has a lot of atmosphere.
A lot of atmosphere. It's the only werewolf movie I can think of that feels like a haunted house movie, with the possible exception of the only good Howling sequel, Howling 5, which was basically, and then there were none.
Strangely, I've never made it to Howling 5.
Two is not good, but 2 is interesting, and you know why.
Explain why Howling 2 is good.
Credit for
Sybil Danning is one.
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Lee getting paid, 2 Sybil Danning, and a halter top.
I thought you were going to say Christopher Lee actually wearing those sunglasses.
I absolutely love the fact that he was done with horror and decided to come back for Howling 2.
Let's just say the payday must have been sweet.
We haven't mentioned The Wolfman, the one with Antonio Banderas and Anthony Hopkins.
Which
I thought was interesting, like it's a flawed movie, but I thought it was interesting because it's.
I love it, actually.
I do too, actually. And the thing I find really fascinating about that movie is it's obviously channeling a Universal vibe. Like
with a lot of Hammer influence too.
Yeah, and it has a more vintage sensibility to it, which I think makes it stand out among other kind of movies.
It's also Exhibit A in the standing thesis that any Joe Johnston movie works just a little better in black and white. So if you can turn off the color, it sings.
I don't know, man, Rocketeer, I don't wanna see Rocketeer.
Okay, I don't want to see Rocket, except Yo Robot break along, but Jurassic Park 3 sings in black and white.
Jurassic Park 3 is still, I know that this will disrupt every human being in this room, but the only Jurassic Park movie I give a damn about is Jurassic Park 3. I think,
Thank you, incidentally, once again, for mentioning the Company of Wolves earlier, because that really.
That's a really good film.
Well, that's the Neil Jordan.
That was the Neil Jordan.
Right? It's
Yeah.
kind of a sexual fable in a way.
It's very much on the art house end of things.
Yeah, it's more of a fantasy, it's like a fantasy film.
Adolescence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a mixture of fantasy and werewolf.
Yeah, we're down to a
You
couple
first.
minutes here, so.
Okay. Well, have you ever heard of a film called Wolf Blood?
Not off the top of my head.
Well, that is actually, that may be, okay, that's not the first werewolf film. It's, I think technically it's the second, but it's the first one, I think, was called The Wolf or the Werewolf, and that's lost.
Yeah, that was 1912.
Yeah, 1912.
Nobody's
But
ever
yeah,
seen it.
Wolf Blood, first, that's,
What year was this?
like
I'm assuming
19,
silent.
it was silent, I would say 1915, 1916.
Okay.
I got no.
Is there a current release of this?
I saw bits and pieces on YouTube.
Okay.
There was a TV series, Wolf Lake, did anyone see that?
I heard it, never saw it.
Yeah, it was about a town of werewolves and.
Wait, no, I did
Yes.
see it. Oh, man. That has
in
been a
Madison,
long time ago.
yeah.
I have slept some.
2001 or so.
Wow. I do.
We're gonna be here a lot longer if we're getting too much into television.
Yeah.
So, we're pretty much at time, but any last minute shout outs that we've overlooked?
Yeah.
Sarah?
Yeah, I just wonder if anybody knows of any works, you know, according to the old legends, the original legends, and it addresses your immortality, mortality part. According to some of the old legends, when a werewolf dies, they become a vampire. And
I think that was a Monster Club thing. That was our check when you gave us through and through.
And that just ties in with sometimes whether something is a vampire or a werewolf is a little fuzzy, since some vampires can become wolves.
It's interesting. Now I'm wondering,
So
is
the
there,
werewolf dying
what
is
monster
leveling up,
dies?
basically.
What monster dies and then becomes a mummy? I mean, if this is gonna be kind of an Ouroboros monster.
Like I said, we're
Yes,
getting
like-
into very serious Harchet Wendy's territory.
Like monster Hinduism or something, you know, if you
Like
live,
about
if
a child.
If you die as a werewolf, you come back as a vampire. If you die as a vampire, you come back as a mummy.
Like the child of a banshee and the werewolf was a shadmock or something like that.
You see, someone named Dr. Frank Einstein, somewhere in a lab trying to get two monsters to mate. I wanna see what happens here.
The monsters.
This feels like
Frankenstein, a monster, and a vampire, and a werewolf child.
It's just, it's true. How about, have you seen Monster Brawl?
Is that what they call it? Are you talking about the claymation?
No, this is, it's got Jimmy Hart and Kevin Nash.
Oh, this was another one of the Dollar Tree specials.
Yeah, it's,
Is it was a Dollar Tree
yeah, they
special?
have a big pay-per-view, Dave Foley's in it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so, you know, a witch is gonna fight a werewolf, and a vampire is gonna fight a Frankenstein, and that's it, that's the.
It's Monster UFC.
You know, I'd buy that for $1.
And that's how much you think.
$1.25.
But $1.50 if it's the wrong shelf.
In terms of drawing from old folk tales and the idea of curses, it occurred to me the movie Lady Hawk has two.
Oh, yeah.
Good call.
First of all, it's a wonderful film. I've been singing that film's praises since I saw it when it first came out. Not that it helped the damn thing make any money. That particular curse has always fascinated me. I love the story. I love what a hideous curse that you can literally never touch the one you love, ever. You can't even be in the same space with them because they are, to a certain extent, you. It's great. And if we lived in a better world, there'd have been a sequel where, you know, it was Rutger Hauer fighting a damn werewolf with a sword. That's what
Last words, last words.
Have you ever seen The Devil Is Not Mocked?
Not that I'm aware of.
It was a Night Gallery episode. Nazis are setting up in the Carpathian Mountains. And yes, Dracula and his werewolf commandos versus Nazis.
Oh, God.
And of course, at this point, shout out to She Werewolves of the SS. Featuring Nicolas Cage as
Or, strangely enough, morphed into something Michael Mann, into a novel that became a film called The Keep.
Well, no, I mean, the Keep is its own, the Keep could be its own freaking panel in its own right.
It should be.
Oh, absolutely, I mean, especially, I mean, get the Vinegar Syndrome for
Yes.
the UHD release, but again, more technically based on a vampire novel, even if the movie is not a vampire movie.
And we're never gonna see
the other 92 minutes of that movie.
Yeah, no. Don't remind me, I start to cry.
Oh, is the shaggy dog a werewolf?
Oh,
Not only would I put it in the category, I would.
It is, yes.
But it is the Shaggy DA that seals the deal.
Oh, yes, okay.
Think about the Shaggy DA.
Well,
He's a werewolf lawyer, get him out of here.
We'll see ourselves.
Not only is it werewolf too, this again.
I think we've established we could go on this at great length, and presumably will eventually, of course.
I want everybody to understand that I did not take you film by film through Hall Nash's werewolf filmography, so you're very lucky.